Football, 100 Million Simulations to Football King, Episode 81. The Seduction of Beautiful Journalists, the Premier League Kicks. Above the award ceremony, Su Long was the focus of the audience. Because Su Long is the final Best Player FMVP, Best Player MVP, Asian Cup Golden Boot, and also selected for the Asian Cup Best Team, Best Lineup. Forwards, Su Long, Dragon Kingdom, Ali Karimi, Iran, Matavaya, Iran. Midfielders, Hideyoshi Nakata, Japan, Yashiichi Shao, Rukuni, Jin Cheol, Rukuni, Ali Day, Iran. Defenders, Zhongji, Rukuni, Hisahayasu Miyamoto, Japan, Yuji Nakazawa, Japan. Goalkeeper, Liu Yunfei, Dragon Kingdom. After the game, head coach Ali Han, Captain Li Weifeng, and Su Long attended the press conference. Ali Han faced the CCTV5 lens, red face. The national football team can win the Asian Cup. I am very happy. Everyone in the case of 0-2 behind did not give up, but inspired a strong fighting spirit, equalized, and then overtaken, which shows the fighting spirit of the Dragon national team. Winning the championship is something to celebrate, and we have seen how to go in the future, and it shows that we are going to take the right path now. It is the right one. Ali Han repeatedly stressed that he was right. Li Weifeng said, although the Asian Cup was generally smooth, we encountered difficulties in the final. In the second half, we made effective adjustments, equalizing in a passive backward situation and then overtaking again. Such a championship experience is unforgettable. Su Long said, at that time, the second half had been forced to the edge of the cliff, and I could only dry up, and there was nothing else to think about. When I equalized, I was so excited and just wanted to hurry up and score another goal. We equalized, scared of the Hajime team opposite, and it turned out to be so. It's a pleasure to get FMVP and MVP. Thank you to the team members for their help and support. After the post-match press conference, Su Long opened the phone. There were a lot of calls. Su Long looked at it and selectively called back. First was Mom and Dad's phone call. Hey, Dad? Did Mom sleep? I'll fly tomorrow morning to Red Airport and fly straight to Manchuria. That ball, no, I don't know where to go. Okay, I'll go home again during that winter break. Immediately after hanging up the phone, call back to Chloe. Hey, honey, you've arrived in Manchuria. I'll get on the plane tomorrow morning. Okay, see you tomorrow. Sun Jihai looked at Su Long and said, when did you get the plane? I'm going to Red Airport tomorrow morning and flying straight to Manchester City. I don't like to go to London and then go to Manchester City. I booked my tickets in advance, or I'll all go with you, and I'll be back a day later than you. Xiao Jiai, who was not far away, also said, I also go to the Red Airport first and then transfer to Munich, the same road. Others joined the discussion curiously. Su Long could see that there were many people who wanted to go abroad to stay in the West, and they themselves had the ability to stay in the West, such as Jingji. Sun Jihai smiled and said, Jingji, just by virtue of your performance in the Asian Cup, there will soon be Premier League Bundesliga clubs coming to you. Jingji glanced at the mobile phone and said, Su Long, is Su Gao your agent? Su Long nodded and said, well, what's wrong? He's looking for you. Well, he said OE invited me to try out. The crowd roared in amazement. Okay, OE, isn't that the original player of Su Long? Bundesliga promotion horse. Sun Jihai nodded and said, there are successful examples of Su Long, and AOE is willing to use the Dragon people, and you should have a chance to go there. Jingji nodded. Jian Libo team let his request is more than £1 million of transfer fees. Other teams dare not say, but just sold Su Long's OE team, should not lack this £1 million. At this time, Su Long's mobile phone rang. He glanced at the mobile phone, slightly stunned after answering the phone, said in English, Mr. Coach. Well, thank you. Oh well, I asked, no problem. Soon, Su Long dropped the phone. Sun Jihai said doubtfully, Manchester City? Su Long nodded, looked at Jingji and said, Qigong has named, Jingji. Do you want to go to Manchester City for a trial training? Premier League Manchester City? The crowd exclaimed. Su Long also only informed Manchester City of his wishes, specifically Jingji and Manchester City to talk. What kind of negotiation it will look like, it depends on Jingji's club and agent. Su Long also recommended Su Gao in the end, saying that if the transfer is not decided, you can ask Su Gao. Although Su Gao was not very strong overseas, his ability on the Dragon Kingdom side was still very strong. At that time, he also helped Su Long solve the domestic contract, and Su Long felt that Su Gao was still an honest businessman who could cooperate. In the future, more players can stay in the West, then the strength of the national team will also be stronger, which will also help Su Long. On the other hand, the top boss of the Football Association held a temporary small meeting after the game. Su Long's excellent performance in the Asian Cup made the top boss of the Football Association feel that Longhua should learn from Su Long's experience and cultivate more powerful players. The top boss of the Football Association asked Su Long why he was so good and what do you think? Football Association executives look at me, I look at you. What is the view of this? Su Long is not a player in the domestic system. What do you want me to think? Of course, they could not answer in this way, but could only answer that Su Long was a special case and it was difficult to replicate. When the big guy heard these high-level words, he frowned and said, why is Su Long so special? Is it because he went to Germany at the age of 17? Someone said, "Boss, we have tried to organize to go to Europe in the past, and we have failed." In my opinion, Su Long is a special example. Just like Michael Jordan, who can replicate. The big guy sighed and said, "Since this is the case, let's go directly to Su Long, to teach us the experience of staying in the West." When the top brass of the Football Association heard this, their faces should change immediately. How could Su Long say what to do if this young man said something bad for him? So the top management of the Football Association used Su Long's time too tightly. "I am afraid that I have to go back to England to play the Premier League. There is no time." The big guy is not a fool, and it can be seen that the top brass of the Football Association does not want Su Long to pass on the experience. However, the high-level people present at the scene opposed it one after another, indicating that their proposal had no mass base. Now that the situation of the national football team is very good, the big guy has thought about it and still gave up this proposal for the time being. Su Long was preparing to go to the Red Airport when the editor-in-chief of Sports Weekly called again. This was not the first media to call Su Long, but it was all rejected by Su Long. It can only be said that Su Long is now a fragrant feast, and everyone wants to eat a bite of his heat. Su Long is still very polite to the Sports Weekly. After all, the Sports Weekly is the first media to report on himself, and Su Long still remembers that they said good things to themselves. Su Long was willing to be interviewed by them, but there was no time. He would have to fly to the Red Airport the next morning. The editor-in-chief of Sports Weekly said that as long as it takes an hour, they can immediately arrange Su Long to a hotel near the airport, which will definitely not affect Su Long's itinerary. Su Long thought about it and agreed to the interview of Sports Weekly. Half an hour later, Su Long arrived at the suite of the Hilton Royal Beijing Airport. Su Long pushed open the door of the hotel and walked in, and should be able to smell a gust of incense. An intellectual OL beauty came out from inside and held out her hand to Su Long and said, "Su Long, hello, I am Li Jia, a reporter for Sports Weekly." She wears a black OL skirt that perfectly shows her full figure. It was now after 12 o'clock, and meeting alone with such a beautiful young woman in the hotel made Su Long a little angry. Su Long also held out his hand and shook her. "Hello, I'm Su Long." Li Jia smiled slightly and said, "Please sit, let's start, shall we?" Hijima Media called you the Dragon King of the Dragon Kingdom after the game, saying that you alone defeated them. What do you think? Su Long smiled and said, "Oh, I look with my eyes." Well, in fact, the victory of the Asian Cup, there is no one person's credit, it is the credit of the whole team, the players, the coaches, and the relevant personnel. To win is the victory of our national football team, to lose is also the responsibility of all of us. Fortunately, we won, and since this year, I think our national football team has begun to be lucky. So what are your plans for the future? The plan for the future, of course, is to establish myself in the Premier League, play for Manchester City, and now after accepting your interview at the airport, I will board the plane later. Time is tight, the first game of the league starts on August 14th and I need to return to Manchester by August 9th. An hour later, Li Jia's red lips opened slightly, looked at Su Long and said, after the interview, "Thank you Su Long. Do you want to drink saliva and take a break?" Su Long quickly shook his head and said, "No, my plane is in a hurry, go first." After speaking, Su Long turned and left. Su Long felt that he couldn't go away without leaving. This goblin was tempting to commit a crime. Li Jia was stunned and bit his finger. She had 0.3 thoughts about Su Long, or she wouldn't have seen him at this time. I didn't expect Su Long not to eat his own set. But Su Long's struggle can be seen. Really a cute boy. August 8th at 5 p.m. UK local time, Man City Airport. Su Long had just come out of the exit of the passage, and immediately a beautiful shadow appeared, jumping directly onto Su Long's body, and his legs tightly wrapped around Su Long's tiger waist. Chloe held Su Long's face, his eyes facing each other, and his eyes were full of twinkling starlight. The combination of beautiful men and women has aroused the sideways eyes of passers-by at the airport. Su Long did not speak, expressed his thoughts with actions, and let go of Chloe until Chloe could not breathe. Go home." Chloe blushed and nodded. Xiao Beixing is newly married, and after the two return home. Anyway, it is not describable, omitting the swastika. The next morning, Su Long gently put Chloe down. Chloe hissed, Su Long kissed Chloe and washed out the door. Less than a week before the first round of the Premier League, Manchester City have already started pre-match training. Su Long did not give himself too much time to turn jet lag, and went directly to Manchester City's training base. Episode 82. Anelka's disdain and anger. Su Long was riding his bicycle to the Manchester City training base. No way, he had not yet learned to drive. Chloe was so tired last night that Su Long couldn't bear to wake her up, so he rode his bicycle. You can also exercise along the way, which is pretty good. Su Long rode along, and suddenly the system letters appeared in his mind, and he was suddenly ecstatic. Ding! Congratulations to the host for winning the 2004 Asian Cup, rewarding 1,000 achievement points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for becoming the top scorer of the 2004 Asian Cup, rewarding 1,000 achievement points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for becoming the best player FMVP in the final, rewarding 1,000 achievement points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for becoming the best player MVP of the Asian Cup, rewarding 1,000 achievement points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for being selected for the Asian Cup Best Team, rewarding 1,000 achievement points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking the Asian Cup single-time goal record with 15 goals, rewarding 2,000 achievement points. Ding! The host scored 15 goals in the Asian Cup, rewarding 1,500 achievement points. After the system is settled, your achievement points instantly soared to 10,000 plus. It seems that we have to play more games for the national team, only half a month. There are so many achievement points. As Su Long rides his bike slowly to Manchester City's training base, Keegan is chatting with his supervisor in the office of head coach Keegan. The team manager looked at Keegan and said, "Are you sure you want to trade Anelka?" Keegan nodded and said, basically determined, "Today Su Long is here. Organize a training 13 training competition to see if you can be sure." Anelka, rising at Arsenal, was once a sought-after talented striker and the team's top scorer last season. In the 2003-2004 season, Anelka made 32 appearances and scored 17 goals, but this did not help the team much, and Manchester City experienced a 14-round winless in the middle of the season, hovering all the way to the lower and middle of the league, and finally ranked only 16. Since the start of the summer transfer period, Anelka has expressed his displeasure with such a small club at Manchester City on several occasions. In Keegan's view, Anelka already wanted to leave Manchester City. Forcing him to stay will only hurt the cohesion of Manchester City. Although Anelka was able to score, it was clear that his personal character flaws had lost his future at Manchester City. The introduction of Su Long this time is also to replace Anelka. Su Long's performance in the Asian Cup has been recognized by the Manchester City coaching staff. For safety, Keegan plans to organize a training match. The team director nodded and said, "Yes, if you really want to trade Anelka, then as soon as possible. Don't wait until the end." At this time, Su Long, who was discussed by the manager and the supervisor, had already ridden to the door of Manchester City's training base. Many reporters crouched at the door, but turned a blind eye to Su Long and looked left and right. Su Long rode in slowly. After a while, a reporter from the Manchester Evening News asked the security guard, "Dude, don't you mean that the Dragon Kingdom Su Long is coming today? Why didn't I see anyone?" The security guard was stunned and said, "Go in, the one who just rode the bike, huh? Cycling?" All the reporters were dumbfounded. Who would have thought that Su Long's first day of coming here was a bicycle? After Su Long entered, he went directly to the head coach's office, which Su Long made an appointment today. By the time Su Long came in, head coach Keegan and assistant coach Cox were watching. Keegan smiled and said, "Su, here you are. Congratulations on winning the Asian Cup." "Thank you, Mr. Coach. Well, I'll tell you about the team. The transfer period has so far and our strikers have transferred 3 strikers, Ilya Twiso and Van Jop. The team's first team strikers are Jonathan McCann, Robbie Fowler and Nicholas Anelka. Robbie Fowler and Jonathan McCann are in a much worse shape and fit than before. They are substitutes. But Anelka was in good shape last season and the boss was not willing to sell him. But I convinced my boss that I had traded you to take his place. After the warm-up, there's going to be a training match, you know?" Su Long listened to Keegan's words and nodded. Keegan's words were straightforward, and Su Long understood them too. The matter of Anelka, Mendes had told himself before. "Okay, Mr. Coach, I have no problem and accept the challenge at any time." "Very good, you just relax." Although Keegan said that it was okay to relax, Su Long still felt that it was better to be safe. Even if it's just a training session, it's the first impression of your teammates on you. Su Long wanted to give his teammates a shocking first impression and establish his prestige in the team. Following assistant coach Cox to the pitch, Su Long began to simulate a football career for himself. Do you use the football career simulator? Use once to consume 1,000 achievement points. Yes. In 2004, at the age of 18, you joined Manchester City in the Premier League for a transfer fee of £10 million. Physical attributes of 24-year-old, score 67. Technical attributes of 24-year-old, score 65. Mental attributes of 21-year-old, score 65. Life experience of 36 years old. Choose the life experience of a 36-year-old. The life story of his football career is flashback. First of all, he returned to OE at the age of 34. And from the memory fragment, Su Long saw that the home team, the OE second team, and the OR youth team all had the figure of 2 dragon people. During this football career, OE really became a bridgehead for dragon players in Europe, in Germany. Although it wasn't too much, Su Long already felt very relieved. This result was much better than when Su Long had been in his previous life. It also shows that his help to the national football team is effective. Then move on to the memory fragment that goes forward. The career in the 5 major leagues is not much different from his previous life experiences, all of which are after going to the Giants, and then returning to the small team. Finally, there was a 4-year career at Manchester City. Except for the league, there were basically no cups played, except for the English FA Cup, and they were eliminated very early. But the fans are very supportive of themselves, and there are dedicated player songs. and there are still 2 songs. The clip soon came to their first game in the Premier League, Manchester City at home against Fulham. The boos of the fans can be faintly seen, and it seems that the fans do not like themselves much at this time. He scored a goal in the first half, but was tied in the second half. It's a bit of a shame. Su Long had to imagine the details of this game as much as possible. Which teammate played well? Who was the key point of the opponent? Who was the hole in the defense? Su Long wrote down one by one, and waited for the game. After 5 days, he could use it. Then came the training game that was going to happen. Similarly, Su Long took the details of the training game as much as possible to remember which of his teammates played well, and would cooperate with him more. Opponents who have defensive loopholes, etc., will be specifically targeted at him. Just when Su Long remembered 77-88, assistant coach Cox had already brought Su Long to the court and introduced Su Long to the players. Su Long felt that the Manchester City players were relatively cold to themselves, not as enthusiastic as they had been in OE, but it was not as repelled as entering Porto in a previous simulated football career, which was decent. Su Long also recognized Anelka, who looked into his eyes and revealed a look of arrogance and disdain. Well, Su Long had heard this man from Mendez's mouth, and now it seemed that he was indeed such a person. First the warm-up, then the circle grab. The skill shown by Su Long in the circle training still surprised many team members. Most of the players are British players, European players, naturally do not pay much attention to the Asian Cup, let alone Su Long as a person. Some people have only heard that Su Long is a transfer fee of £10 million, and some people even don't know it. Now, Su Long's performance in front of them was enough for them to face up. This is a young man with skills. Anelka 467 disdain, who was not a genius teenager at that time. Soon, Zhuang coach Kigan and Zhuang Guan came. Kigan clapped his palms and said, "Then let's play a training match. The starting team is Team A, the substitute is Team B. Su Long, you go to Team B. Is there any problem?" Su Long shook his head and said, "No problem." "Well, your number is number 9, right?" Su Long said lightly, "Yes." When the crowd heard Kigan's words, they looked different. Number 9 jersey, that is, Kigan has the idea of lifting Su Long straight. Anelka sneered. When he came, Wanchop was the number 9, and he could only take the number 39. Now that Wanchop has transferred, by an 18-year-old wearing a number 9, Kigan, what do you mean? I'm not gone yet. Since that's the case, I'll see what you kid can do to wear a number 9. Training sessions soon began. Su Long is also the first time to participate in a training tournament at the Premier League level. Even if it's just a training match, the offensive and defensive transitions are faster than in the Bundesliga, and there is more physical confrontation than in the Bundesliga. Bang! The first time Su Long received the ball, he was bumped by the defender Thatcher, who came from behind him, and Su Long kicked the ball back. Thatcher looked at Su Long in surprise. Su Long's seemingly thin body is very hard. Kind of like Sun. Are the Dragon Country players so tough? Su Long swam around the edge of Team A's backline from time to time, and retreated from time to time, and this rhythm mastered the eyes of the head coach Kigan, who was watching the game next to him. Compared to Anelka, Su Long is more willing to run. Anelka saw Su Long's act of running and sneered. No matter how much he ran, it was not as good as a goal. Soon, Anelka got a chance to be threatening, but the shot was slightly offside. Anelka took a deep breath, calmed herself, and said to herself, "It's okay, next time I can enter." However, 2 minutes later, Team B's corner, Su Long successfully grabbed a point in the penalty area and successfully pushed the ball into the goal. 0-1. Su Long scored the first goal, and Anelka's face was ugly. Episode 83. The UEFA Cup, Walk. The head coach on the sidelines looked at Su Long and the corner Patton high five, and said to the assistant coach Cokes, "This goal has a good sense of smell. There have been such balls in the Asian Cup, and it should be no problem in the Premier League." As for confrontation, it seems that there is no problem for the time being, and Thatcher's efforts do not seem to have any impact on Su Long. He also withdraws from time to time. In contrast, Anelka is reluctant to do such a job. On the pitch, Anelka was furious. "What is your own side of the backline for? What does this goalkeeper do? Or the British gate?" Similarly, Team A's teammates are regular starters and don't want to lose face in front of newcomers, so the defense of Su Long began to increase. 5 minutes later, after receiving a pass from his teammate, Su Long immediately turned around from the top of the arc of the big penalty area and prepared to accelerate the breakthrough. But at this moment, the same new British national football defender Mills appeared in front of Su Long. Mills first used his body and Su to take the card position, but Su Long's speed was obviously one step faster than Mills, and he took the lead in accelerating and easily passed Mills. Just as Su Long was about to rush towards the forbidden area, Mills directly hit behind his back, but was surprised to find that Su Long had skillfully gotten rid of him. Not at all like an 18-year-old young player. If only the other young players had been pulled back by themselves, they would have stopped and complained about their fouls. But Su Long was very skillful in waving his hand away. Now Mills' hands were fiery, watching Su Long once again enter the penalty area. Facing the onslaught of British international David James, a cross pass. The B teammates in the back followed, hit the empty door and did not enter, kicked and flew. Su Long was also a pity. Can this also not go in? The young midfielder's chances of being able to perform were screwed up by himself, and his head was wrapped in chagrin. The head coach, who was watching from the sidelines, immediately asked someone to replace the midfielder who had just kicked the flying ball. Then Kiffin patted the young player and said, "Freud, today you practice 100 more goals." Fred said with a depressed face, "Yes, Mr. Coach." Su Long played 2 wonderful performances that impressed his teammates. Anelka was more and more anxious, but he did not play well, but in a rash breakthrough, he was snatched by the retreating Su Long. Anelka wanted to chase Su Long back, but he was breathless. This summer vacation was too long, he had not yet recovered, and could only watch Su Long shoot from a distance at the top of the arc of the large penalty area and hit the ball in. Su Long shook his arm and shouted. The head coach K Wong saw this situation and directly stopped the competition. The base net briefly commented on it and then regrouped it. Let Su Long and some of the starters play training matches with the reserve team. Let Anelka and another group of starters train with the youth team. There was no more alignment of Shuren and Anelka. Even in front of so many people, give Anelka a little face, not to be too ugly. But Anelka was furious. Since Manchester City are so disrespectful of him, his future will not be in Manchester City. Anelka has decided to call his 2 brothers immediately when he returns today, saying that he wants to transfer. In the manager's office, Kifong looked at the team director and said, "You also saw the training match. Su Long's state is much better than Anelka, and Su Long is not that kind of game player. In the Bundesliga, in the Asian Cup is an extraordinary performance." The team director nodded and said, "Yes, we have found the treasure. Since that's the case, I've set the transfer fee for Anelka at 15 million yuan. After all, he played so well last season. There are still many teams willing to touch the prize." Kinnett nodded and said, "Well, just try not to sell to Premier League teams." The director said quietly, "Base network, you have to understand, only the Premier League team is willing to pay 15 million British slander." Keegan shook his head and said, "Well, doesn't Wenger want to get him back? Look at Arsenal's will and send it back to Arsenal." "Well, do you have any player requirements?" "The one I said before, Jingji of the Dragon Kingdom." "Jingji of the Dragon Kingdom, can he have a labor certificate?" I asked. "His national team matches the criteria and can apply for a labor certificate. If there is no problem with the labor certification, I can contact him immediately to come over for a trial training." "Well, this is his agent's phone," called Su Gao. After the training, Coach Pierce looked at Su Long and asked, "Su, how did you get here?" Because when he came over, he saw Su Long riding a bicycle. Su Long pointed to a bicycle on the parking lot and said, "Ride this." "Oh, where is your home? Do you want me to give you a ride?" "Oh, that's trouble." "No hassle, I can tell you about the current situation of the players in the team, which is also the task of our coaching staff. Today you also played with Wright, Mills, what do you think of them?" Su Long thought back and said, "Is Wright the little black man who is fast?" "He's fast, he feels like he can work well with me, and as for Mills, he's defending very well and is a defensive mammoth." "Anelka, are you telling me about the rumors about your transfer this summer? Is that true?" "Su Long from the Dragon Kingdom, has it had any effect on your position? Can you tell us what you say about your new teammate Su Long?" "He is the MVP and FMVP of the Asian Cup, the top scorer." Anelka drove the car, his face was gloomy, ignored the reporters, and drove away from the reporters who had been crouching in front of the Manchester City training base for half a day, and there was nothing too good to gain. Anelka was gone, so he could only wait for the appearance of the Buddha figure Su Long. I heard the security guard say that Su Long was riding a bicycle. Until it was almost dark, the reporter did not wait for Su Long. At this time, Su Long was having a candlelight dinner with Chloe. The next day, Sun Jihai also returned to the team on time, and Anelka did not come to training. Everyone is paying attention to the changes in the team's personnel, and when they heard that the head coach is also planning to introduce a third Dragon countryman, many people have a word in their minds. Dragon Kingdom gang. At this time, the Manchester City boss was furious at the FA headquarters. As the summer transfer period passes by day and the team's former top scorer Anelka is ready to go, the European League Cup and the Premier League are also ready to start. However, Su Long's genius clause was actually rejected. This made Manchester City boss Wardle very angry. "Are you guys blind when you step on horses? Su Long is the top scorer in the Bundesliga, breaking a record 39 goals last season, just finished the 2004 Asian Cup, scored 15 goals, also a record-breaking. I'm only 18 years old, and you say it's not a genius, it doesn't meet the genius clause, so I'd like to see what genius you have passed this year. If you do this, we at Manchester City will definitely expose and complain." "What the hell are you FA doing?" Manchester City boss Water erupted in anger that alarmed the FA hierarchy. The FA top brass came over to ask what was going on, and after hearing Wardle's angry complaints, the senior management said, "Mr. Wardle, I think there may be some misunderstanding in the approval. I will let them re-examine. Tomorrow we'll give you a satisfactory answer, okay?" It wasn't until Wardle left that the FA hierarchy asked what was going on. The relevant personnel have apologized one after another. The top brass are not fools, and naturally know that Ferguson's side is not happy, deliberately jamming Manchester City and disgusting Wardle. "You guys hurry up, the grudge between their two teams has nothing to do with us. Don't do so many things. I read Su Long's information. He deserves to pass the genius clause." Yes, high rise. Soon, Su Long's genius clause was passed, and Su Long officially entered the first team. At the same time, Manchester City announced that Anelka had transferred to Liverpool for 14 million British ligums. The Manchester Daily said that this transfer, leaving the team's top scorer trade for Manchester City, is more harmful than good, and it is irresponsible to the team to pin all their hopes on a young player who has never proved himself in the Premier League. Slowchester Evening News said that if this transfer is not good, at the end of this season, Manchester City's ranking is likely to be worse than last season's 16th place will fall into the relegation zone, and then Manchester City's management and coaching staff will be the sinners of Manchester City fans. There are other tabloids that write small stories in a colorful way. Some say that Su Long is the bastard son of the head coach Base Network. Some say that the head coach Base Network has collected money from the Dragon Country Consortium and uses Dragon Country players in large quantities. Anyway, all kinds of stories. Su Long feels that it is better than the novel. And Manchester City fans, seeing what the media said, cannot calm down and come to the door of the training base to protest, demand that Manchester City retract the transfer decision, ask the head coach to leave the class, and even some unknown fans ask Su Long to roll back to the Dragon Country. Manchester City boss Wardle originally had the intention of letting the Base Network out of class, but this time the Su Long recommended by the Base Wind, Wardle himself felt very good, so Ward decided to give the Base Network another year. Wardle is not only because of Su Long's competitive strength, but also because of the Dragon Country broker behind Su Long. Just a while ago, after Manchester City transferred to Su Long, it signed a jersey advertising agreement with a Dragon Country company, 5 million English slander a year. In 2 years, Su Long's transfer fee was earned back. Not to mention that after selling Anelka, Manchester City made another 14 million. In this way, as the owner of Manchester City, he finally breathed a sigh of relief and did not have to worry about Manchester City's economic problems for the time being. When Su Long was training these days, of course, he knew the opposition of the media and fans, but Su Long completely ignored the mix. Sun Jihai comforted, "Su Long, don't pay attention to them, just play your own ball. The atmosphere on the British side is like this." Su Long smiled and said, "Well, it's okay, they don't look favorably on me. Then I can only prove it with goals." On August 13th, it was the qualifying round of the UEFA Cup. Manchester City play away to Katowice FC. Katowice FC is a Polish Serie A team. As it was an away match, Manchester City players were heading to the GKS Katowice Center in Poland's Katowice region. This round of competition, for Manchester City, belongs to the warm-up, small test bull knife. Su Long will also make his debut in this away game. Episode 84, Hat Trick. The test of the first Premier League game. In this away game to Poland, most of the main players were rested, and Su Long and Sun Jihai followed the past, also because they had missed the team's warm-up match before, and this away game was played as a warm-up match. In the away locker room, Su Long said hello to each of his teammates and then sat back down in his place. An hour before the start of the game, Su Long was talking to Chloe on the phone on his mobile phone. "Chloe, can Sky watch it? That's it, get ready to go. Go back when you're done." Datras next door was also talking to his wife and children on the phone. Datras, who moved from PSV Eindhoven in the summer, is today's starting goalkeeper, and this season he will play mainly in the cup as a supplement to David James. Su Long and Datras both hung up the phone almost at the same time, looked at each other, and smiled. Su Long asked politely, "Datras, is your family coming to Manchester?" Datras shook his head and said, "Not yet. When I find a good house here, I'll be ready to come." Su Long chatted with his teammates around him for 2 words, then came out of the locker room and walked to the players' tunnel to prepare to play. Here is Sky TV. Welcome to watch the 2004 to 2005 UEFA Cup qualifiers, Katowice, at home against Manchester City. Before the game began, a soccer ball that fell from the sky smashed into the head of the live beauty narrator on the sidelines, causing Sky TV's commentary to suddenly stop for 30 seconds, and the screen shifted to another shot. Soon, the beauty commentary that had just been smashed appeared again, and laughed self-deprecatingly. "There are always accidents on the football field. It is now 1940, 5 minutes before the official start of the game. The starters on both sides are already on the field, and the game is ready to start." Kato 220 Wies is the midstream team of the Belarusian First League, and in Su Long's view, it is probably about the same level as the Bundesliga league. Shortly after the start of the first half, McManaman sent a very subtle direct shot that Su Long deflected off the road in the middle of the box. Su Long raised his hand to show me, "Just stepped on the grass pit, or it is very likely to enter. But don't worry, this game depends on how many goals can be scored." This is Manchester City's new season spent £10 million to transfer the Dragon Country young striker Su Long. The first goal is slightly deflected. Katowice defenders have to be careful. Such a threat appears 2 or 3 times, maybe about to be broken. We can see that Manchester City's shirt advertising has changed this season, which is the symbol of Dragon Country Cologne Company, which seems to be a mobile phone company in Dragon Country. Manchester City transferred to Toulon. A big reason is because of the Dragon Country enterprise behind Toulon, right? The players now are not like we used to be, more about the commercial attributes in them. But what does that do to the competition? Sky TV's live commentary is that Liverpool star Pierce, who has been retired for 5 years, in his view, Manchester City's transfer to Toulon is to look at Toulon's commercial attributes. Pierce was very dismissive of this. Chloe was watching the game when he heard Pierce's words, very angry, 2 small fists raised. Sue must score a goal, smash his face, and say this to my Sue. Toulon seemed to be able to hear Chloe's call, and in the 15th minute, Manchester City took the lead to break the deadlock. Another cross from the restricted area. Toulon wrapped up in front of the door and broke the door very easily. Or McManaman's assists. Toulon raised his arms and shouted, rushing towards McManaman, and McManaman high-fived. McManaman looked at Toulon's excited look and smiled slightly. At that time I was also like this. It's just that more than 10 years have passed, I am old, my legs and feet are not flexible, and now I can only play in the cup, maybe one day I will retire. The on-site commentary Pierce exclaimed, very beautiful cross-transmission. Toulon finally did not waste the opportunity this time. Manchester City first, next City. 1-0. In the 31st minute, Manchester City served on this side. Goalkeeper Vatras had a big foot and passed the ball directly to Toulon at the top of the arc of the penalty area opposite. Toulon unloaded the ball with one kick, turned around and squeezed the defender behind him away and entered the penalty area. Nice stop. Oh my god, Katowice's number 4 defender was no match for Toulon at all, and was easily overthrown. Facing the goalkeeper, Toulon very calmly pushed the far corner and the ball went in. It's a good ball. It can be seen that Toulon's technical and physical qualities are very good, and Katowice defenders are careless. In the 43rd minute, Manchester City's side was given another chance to threaten. Toulon accelerated his breakthrough on the right and carried the opposite defender out of his feet. The ball hit the opposing defender and changed direction, right through the hands of the Katowice goalkeeper, and the ball fell into the goal. Pierce, the live commentator, exclaimed, "Oh my god, incredible goals. Genius goals, 3-0. Hat-trick, I take back my previous words, Sue is really a genius. For £10 million, well worth it." The teammates also rushed up with excitement. Who would have thought that Toulon would be so fierce? Sue, Cow X, kill him. Keegan, the head coach on the sidelines, clapped his palms, very satisfied with Toulon's performance today, and said to the assistant coach Cox next to him, "Sue's play is too stable." The action on the field began to be big, changed people in the second half. In the second half, Keegan made adjustments to the players on the field, and Toulon went to rest. Keegan patted Toulon on the shoulder and said, "Play well, save your strength. The next game is the first round of the Premier League. We're at home against Fulham and you're going to start. Sue, we need your firepower." Toulon nodded. There were no surprises in this match, which ended in a 4-1 victory over Katowice. McManaman scored another goal in the 60th minute of the second half. Due to the range of movement between the two sides, there was a little skirmish on the pitch. After the game, the entire Manchester City team flew back to Manchester in the early hours of the morning. Back home, Chloe, in a silky nightgown, immediately stepped out of the bedroom. "Sue, you're back." Toulon hugged Chloe tightly and said, You weren't injured in today's game, were you?" "No, I was replaced in the second half." Let's go back to the room." The next day's Manchester Evening News, the Manchester newspaper and various tabloids reported on Manchester's 4-1 in the UEFA Cup qualifiers yesterday. Toulon's hat-trick at half, many newspapers immediately changed their tone, saying that Manchester City's transfer was well worth it, including the Manchester newspaper. The Manchester Daily said that Toulon's firepower was sufficient, and for the time being, it seemed that there was a chemical reaction in the team, and there was no situation of inconsistency. At the end of the article, it was also mentioned that the next home match against Fulham on August 16th will be a touchstone for Toulon. Whether you can play in the Premier League, adapt to the rhythm of the Premier League, watch this game to know. But the Manchester Evening News is still not optimistic about Toulon, saying that the opponent of the UEFA Cup qualifiers, Katowice, is only a mid-range Polish league team, not even a Bundesliga, and there is nothing to see. Then it is said that a weak team killer like Toulon, under the high-intensity confrontation of the Premier League, will certainly not be able to exert his original strength. Finally, he threatened, in the first round of the game against Fulham, Toulon will certainly not have any good performance. Be prepared for £10 million to the water. No Asian striker has been successful in the Premier League for so many years. Toulon is also like this. Chloe looked at the newspaper and trembled with anger. "Angry man, say this, my dear." Chloe is now eager to immediately scold the editor of the Manchester Evening News. Chloe said angrily, "Sue, aren't you angry?" Don't you have the self-confidence to think the same way? Su Long smiled and said, now getting angry is also a waste of my own expression. I will only use the goal to smash their faces. Go. I went to training. With that, Su Long kissed Chloe and went out. At the edge of the court, head coach Keegan was telling the players about the tactics of the next game. The next game, Su Long and Fowler, you are the starting strikers. Fowler, you are at the front. Do a good job of pivot. Fowler nodded. To do the fulcrum at the front is to sacrifice your own scoring ability, and to make the ball for the teammates behind you by making the fulcrum yourself. Fowler was originally a team player who was willing to sacrifice for the team, and coupled with this period of training, he could see that Su Long's scoring ability was now stronger than his. So Fowler was also willing to make green leaves. At this point, Keegan is also very relieved, which is why Keegan continues to arrange Fowler to be the starter. This season, Keegan is to build players with Su Long as the core. Driver Sybil, Bossville, you are in tandem with Su Long in the middle of the road. Su Long will often retreat to help you, and you are always ready for crosses and direct passes. Right, Renner, you're breaking through the left and right sides. First look for Fowler's point, let Fowler receive the ball and assist the players inserted in the back. Who else is the player inserted in the back? Of course, is Su Long. Of course, this is only the basic tactic. The situation on the field is ever-changing, and the players will fine-tune themselves according to the situation on the pitch on this tactical framework. The players who can be adjusted, the team, will naturally gain an advantage on the pitch. The head coach can only decide the tactics prepared before the game. As for how much the tactics play in the game, one depends on whether the opponent gives the opportunity, and the other depends on whether his players can react on the spot. On August 16, 2 p.m., there is still an hour to go before the first round of the 2004-05 Premier League. In the Fulham locker room, head coach Koeman tapped on the tactical board and shouted, remember, our lineup today is 451, playing defensive counterattack. You see this area in the middle, this space, you have to give the opposite side compression. Limit the newcomer striker Su Long opposite. In last season's Bundesliga and the European Championship qualifiers the day before yesterday, he showed excellent attacking firepower and cannot be underestimated. No matter where he swam to, he gave me 2 or even 3 people to watch. Once you want to kill into the forbidden area, surround him, and he's still a newcomer. When you defend, be fierce, teach him a lesson, understand. Fulham's defensive core, the main back, the £5 million Legwinski grinned and said, okay, let's teach him a lesson. Episode 85. Rookie, welcome to the Premier League. Welcome to Manchester City Stadium. This is Sky Sports. I'm football host Rice, and I'm with Premier League professional commentator Mark. I'm Mark. Good afternoon, audience. You're watching Manchester City's home game against Fulham in the first round of the Premier League. Mark, tell us a little bit about both sides. I think Manchester City's move to Anelka is very risky, and whether Su Long can make a difference in the Premier League is not certain. In case he doesn't fit into the rhythm of a Premier League team, City may lack an attacking core that can pull out the city. Fulham, on the other hand, has changed largely, and Rosiński, who was brought in from Everton, has been proven in the Premier League and is a qualified striker. I'm more bullish on Fulham this game, but given City's home side, I think they'll draw 1-1. Okay, thank you Mark, let me watch the game. Both starters came on. In the media seat at the scene, the Longo reporter looked at the starters on both sides of the field who had stood in a straight line. Battle song up. The whole Manchester City fans were singing the Manchester City song. An old journalist carries a huge video camera, followed by a female reporter with a microphone, from the away team starter all the way to the home team starter. This shot is presented to the audience in front of the TV. Tens of millions of fans in Dragon Country are watching the Premier League live broadcast and see the camera move from the Fulham starter all the way to the Manchester City players. Suddenly, the resolute face of a young player with an oriental atmosphere came into view. Thousands of fans shouted in amazement. Su Long. Su Long is the starter. What about Sun Jihai? Oh, Sun Jihai is a substitute. CCTV5's commentator teacher Han smiled and said, Su Long is the 5th player in our Dragon Kingdom to log into the UK, and before him there are Fan Ziyi, Sun Jihai, Li Tai, and Li Weifeng. Wang Qincheng then said, although Dong Fengzhou joined Manchester United, he has not been able to log on to Manchester United because he has not obtained a labour certificate. Otherwise Manchester City's Manchester United derby will look good. Teacher Han asked, then why doesn't Su Long need a labour certificate? Huang Jianxiang replied, because Manchester City applied for a genius clause for Su Long. Each team can only apply for a talent clause per season, and Manchester City gave this precious opportunity to Su Long, which also proves Manchester City's sincerity to Su Long. Manchester City can only be regarded as a mid-level player in the Premier League, and there is indeed no younger player who is more suitable for applying for the genius clause than Su Long. Moreover, the first Premier League game was played, which is the first of our Longwa people. In the last Europa League qualifiers, Su Long was also a starter, and he scored a hat-trick against Polish league side Katowice, and we expect Su Long to have a good performance today. Dong Fengzhou, who was watching the game, heard Huang Jianxiang's words and gritted his teeth in anger. I don't believe that I sent Su Long to have so much. he can get the Day Golden Boots, and I can also take the Bijia Golden Boots. Dong Fengshua wanted to turn off the TV to work overtime training, thought about it, or watch this game and then talk about it. Longhua, Jingji looked at the figure of Su Long on TV, couldn't help but boil with blood, and immediately called his new agent Su Gao. Brother Gao, how are we doing for the visa to England? What? Censored, it may take a month? Well, Jingji watched the TV back, the referee blew the whistle at the beginning of the game, and the game began. The first to kick off was the Fulham team that played on the road. Su Long was very active after coming on the court, retreating to defend and destroying the threat of several Fulham attacks, and in 3 minutes, Su Long finally received a pass from his teammate for the first time. The sidelines suddenly erupted in cheers from several fans. Su Long, come on, they are all fans of Longhua international students. The Longhua reporters and the media were also surprised to look back and found that many Longhua fans had come to watch the game. This scene, of course, was also captured by the camera and presented in front of the TV. Teacher Han smiled and said, "These shouting Chinese cheers are all our Longhua people who stayed overseas in the West." Huang Jianxiang nodded and said, "Yes, most of them are Manchester students, many of them were originally Manchester United fans, but after Su Long joined Manchester City, they became Manchester City fans." Teacher Han said, "Well, this is very reasonable, it should be like this." At the moment when Su Long stopped the ball, Fulham's defensive core Legwinski directly rushed up. Su Long turned his back to Legwinski to protect the ball and knocked the ball back to Wright Phillips in the back. Then the counter run got rid of Legwinski and the ball went straight up again. Legwinski did not expect Su Long's movements to be so sophisticated, not at all like a young player, and rushed to try to grab Su Long and not give him acceleration. However, when Su Long ran, his hand flew backwards and knocked off Legwinski's hand. Legwinski was stunned and tried his best to catch up. When Su Long passed Legwinski, he had been observing. If you were in the Bundesliga, you would now have gotten rid of the defenders and are ready to be a one-handed goalkeeper. The Premier League is really not a loss, is the strongest physical confrontation in the 5 major leagues, and the opposing defensive players are really going to catch up. Just as Legwinski grabbed Su Long's jersey, Su Long crossed the middle road with 1 foot. Fowler arrived in time to enter the penalty area, but was still destroyed by the opposing defender in time. Unfortunately, Su Long made a very threatening pass. Yes, Fowler slowed down and Fulham's Waltz managed to sabotage this attack. Look at the corner, Fulham's header was cleared. In the 11th minute, Su Long was about to pass Legwinski again, and was destroyed by a tactical foul on Legwinski, who kicked Su Long on the foot and Su Long fell to the ground. Iron Man feature activated. 50% reduction in injuries, minor injuries. The fans in the stadium immediately booed. The referee walked over and didn't give the yellow God of War card, just signaled Legwinski's action to pay attention. Legwinski nodded and said he would do it later. Legwinski then walked up to Su Long, who had stood up, smiled, and said, "Rookie, welcome to the Premier League." Su Long patted the dirt on his body and said, "Oh, you can only stop me with fouls?" Su Long's unsalty and unindifferent attitude made Legwinski stunned for a moment, and he suddenly showed an angry look. This is Su Long's first game in the Premier League. His performance has been very good. It is clear that the intensity of the Premier League game is far beyond the intensity of the Bundesliga. Fouls like the one just made are not uncommon in the Premier League. Hopefully he can get used to it and not be affected. Fulham on the other side obviously did their homework before the game, and this game was very targeted to deploy around Su Long. This also illustrates the threat of Su Long. Later, Su Long had another chance to threaten to shoot at goal, which was fouled by the Fulham defender on the outside edge of the penalty area. With 2 steps away from the penalty area, no penalty was caused, only a yellow Aries card was given to Fulham defender Waltz, and this free kick was taken by Fowler. Fowler attacked the goal directly and the ball deflected slightly off the top edge of the goal. The fans cheered in fright. City didn't score until 40 minutes, but the overall situation seems to be that Manchester City pressed Fulham to play, which is a bit beyond expectations. Mainly, Su Long's performance is very good. He is very loud in the attack, although he did not score, but presented a great threat to Fulham. In these 40 minutes, Su Long is also correcting his style of play based on this game and his life experience in simulating several Premier League football careers before. It can be said that in these 40 minutes, Su Long has been adjusting himself, striving to fit his teammates and the rhythm of the Premier League game. In the 44th minute, City's fast left Marat forced a cross over the left and sent a cross when he rushed to the bottom line. There was a lot of chaos in the penalty area, and no one was able to top the ball. The ball went straight into the arms of the goalkeeper opposite. However, the opposite goalkeeper Butter took his hand and the ball fell out. It just fell in front of Su Long. Su Long pushed and shot with 1 kick. Precision shooting feature activated. Sky Sports' beautiful hostess opened her mouth wide and exclaimed, "Oh my God, my God." Fulham's goalkeeper Van der Sar made a mistake. He didn't catch the ball fell out and was scored by Su Long. 1-0, lucky shot. On the side of Longhua CCVV5, Teacher Han said with a smile on his face. The goal, Su Long's launch goal, is a goal of gold. It can be seen that his shooting skills are very skilled. Not everyone can take advantage of that opportunity in front of the door. Su Long has the best archery skills of the younger generation of the Dragon Kingdom. The corners of Huang Jianxiang's mouth next to him twitched, and he thought in his heart, Teacher Han, you blew too much, right? If the ball that was just delivered to his feet could not be scored, then he would have to sit on the cold bench. Fulham's lead conceded a goal, leaving Fulham in a passive position. In this case, Fulham's defensive counterattack could not be achieved, and could only attack with full force. The first half ended quickly. Both sides are easy to fight again. In the first 20 minutes of the second half, the rhythm was gradually mastered by the all-out attack of Fulham. Fulham bombarded Manchester City several times, but no goal was scored, either mistaken or confiscated. Fulham were originally only the middle and lower teams in the Premier League, and the offensive firepower is not necessarily how large. On the contrary, after the all-out attack, the loopholes in the back line allowed Su Long to see the opportunity to continue to break the goal. In the 77th minute, Su Long's outside with the ball broke through to the penalty area, and in a flash, the low shot was slightly deflected. The cheers of the fans in the audience had just risen and stopped. Su Long shook his head. Premier League goals are indeed much more difficult than the Bundesliga. The gap between the defensive players and the gap between the goalkeepers directly affects the goal. But in 85 minutes, when everyone's physical strength began to decline, Su Long once again found an opportunity. Su Long had a premonition that this opportunity would be the best opportunity to enter this game. Episode 86. The occasion, the darling of the media. Kigan, who was standing on the sidelines, looked at the time. It was 85 minutes. Su Long had played for so long in his first start, ready to replace him. Just as Kigan was preparing to make a substitution, the field began to change. Legwinski received the ball in the middle and saw Fowler rushing up, so he turned to protect the ball. Unexpectedly, Su Long rushed over from the other side, came over and kicked it, and even the person kicked it with the ball. Legwinski screamed and fell to the ground, only to see the ball poke into the box. The fans cheered. The referee hesitated and did not blow the penalty. Su Long's broken ball, very beautiful. The ball is inside the box. Go Ale. Enter, enter. The ball is in. Su Long pushed the far corner with one kick, and the ball spoke. My God, 2-0. Su Long opened twice. The first game was scored twice. Su Long raised his arms and shouted, and his teammates rushed up and hugged Su Long. Fowler said directly with his head above Su Long, Su, good ball. Su Long smiled and said, we cooperate seamlessly. Legwinski quickly got up and protested to the referee. He just fouled up. The referee shook his head to say there was no foul and a very clean break of the ball. Legwinski's feet were still faintly painful, and he looked at Su Long, who was running to celebrate. How can this Dragon Country person seem to have played in the Premier League for a long time, and there is no sense of strangeness as a newcomer? Damn, I was actually blown up by a rookie newcomer. Legwinski and Fulham's players had no idea this outcome before the game. The fans cheered. Dragon Nation fans in front of the TV are also partying. Very precise break of the ball, no problems at all. The goal is valid, 2-0, twice the goal. Perfect Premier League debut. For the second time, Su Long proved to everyone that his £10 million transfer fee was worth the money. Perfect performance, nothing more perfect. 86 minutes, 0-2 behind. Fulham's men were out of confidence. Finally, the end of the game was whistled. Wonderful game. Manchester City won the first game of the season 2-0, and the newly joined talented player Su Long handed over the perfect answer. The first game was scored twice. Su Long completely broke the prejudice of foreigners about whether we Dragon people can play forwards. We are looking forward to Su Long's next game. Su Long returned to the locker room with the support of his teammates. Head coach Kigan clapped his palms and said, this game played our tactics out, played well. Kigan feels that Su Long's transfer is really worth it. Much better than the greedy Frenchman of Anelka. That greedy Frenchman had no professionalism at all, and all day long it was money and money. It's good to send him to scourge Liverpool now. As a legendary star, Kigan knows very well that the most important thing for a player is the mental attribute, and in his opinion, the well-mannered Shuren is much better than Anelka. At this time, Anelka, who had just been traded to Liverpool, looked very bad after watching the results of Manchester City's match. He would have liked to see his old club Manchester City draw and even lose the game in this game, but he did not expect to win the game 2-0. Looking at the data, Su Long, who replaced him, actually scored twice, which made Anelka too unacceptable. The most embarrassing and infuriating thing was that in the first game after Anelka's transfer to Liverpool, the starting team played all over the game, did not score, and the team drew 1-1. The comparison between the two teams of Liverpool and Manchester City is awkward. Anelka said angrily, the next game is our home game against Manchester City. I must score. Hat-trick. Make Kigan regret kicking me away. Su Long spoke on the phone with his mom and dad and Chloe in the locker room before heading to the mixed interview area. The mixed interview area is the area where the reporter interviews the athletes for the first time after the game, and if you want to leave the stadium, you must first pass through the mixed area. This is also the area of the big stadium, which is not seen in OE anyway. However, I heard that OE is preparing to renovate the stadium, otherwise it does not fit OE's current status as a Bundesliga team. Thinking of this, Su Long took out his mobile phone to search for how OE's current situation was in the Bundesliga. The second round had been played, OE drew and lost, and scored 0 goals. Oh, it is indeed a bit miserable, but isn't that the norm for promoted horses? Su Long was trying to see the battle report of the OE team, when suddenly a short cannon stabbed over Su Long. Su Long was stunned, and a group of reporters were across the fence to interview themselves. The one who just called himself was a Dragon Country reporter. For his compatriots, Su Long certainly took care of him. The Longbo reporter is very grateful, because each interview in the mixed interview area is only 1 minute, so he makes a long story short. Su Long, congratulations on your second degree. What kind of mood is it now? Can you feel in advance that you can score today? Su Long smiled and said, of course, the mood is very happy. First of all, the first goal is thanks to Wright's cross. He is our wing engine. Without him there is no chance to tear the defense, in addition to the cooperation of the opposite goalkeeper. The Longbo reporter smiled when he heard this. Then Su Long said, the second time is to thank Fowler. There is no previous scramble. There is no break in my later ball. The help of teammates is the most important. My second comeback is a credit to the whole team. For the premonition of the goal, as a striker, I have to have that premonition. After Su Long finished speaking, he left the mixed interview area, leaving a messy group of foreign friends. What are they talking about? European reporters have learned from the reporters of the Dragon Country. Their attitudes are completely different, and they ask Su Long with a smile on their faces, and they may as well go back and explain to the president. Within an hour, Europe's major online media have reported on today's Premier League match. The title of the Manchester City plate is in this style. Dragon Country genius leads Manchester City to the first win of the season. The future can be expected. Manchester City blew the storm of the Dragon Country. Su Long's perfect debut was scored twice. Manchester City's perfect season debut, the new nuclear Su Long opened twice. Dragon Kingdom Tyrannosaurus plum twice. Perfect performance conquest of Manchester City. Dragon Kingdom's Velociraptor plum twice. Foreign media blew up, more exaggerated than the Dragon Country reporter, directly applying the name of Su Long by the media of the Asian Cup and even adapting the title. The next morning, Su Long blushed when he saw the reports. Of course, there are a few media outlets that Manchester City's game is just lucky, and the next game away to Liverpool is the real test. Su Long put down the newspaper and muttered, next game, away to Anfield against Liverpool? Chloe wrapped her arms around Su Long's neck and gently blew the wind in Su Long's ear. Honey, it's time for breakfast. In the afternoon, Chloe drove Su Long to Manchester City training base, and finally was blocked by reporters at the door. The reporter, who had been blocking the door for a week, finally waited for Su Long. The female reporter of the Manchester Evening News said with a complaining face, Su, I waited for you for a week, and finally waited for you. Chloe immediately looked at Su Long. Su Long immediately posed in surrender and said, hey, I didn't do anything, don't talk nonsense. When the female reporter saw Chloe driving, her eyes lit up. Su, is this your girlfriend? Su Long quickly closed the car window and said, I'm sorry. The reporters did not dare to stop the car, and could only watch the car enter. Chloe drove into the parking lot and said quietly, Su, you're quite popular. Su Long's wide eyes, I think you are more popular. The look in the eyes of the female reporter just now is like seeing Tang Monk's flesh. Chloe wondered, what is Tang Monk meat? It's very fragrant meat. Delicious. My dear. Chloe kissed Su Long and said, well, I'll come back and pick you up when you're done training. Su Long had just gotten out of the car and happened to meet Sun Jihai. Su Long, that's your girlfriend? Su Long nodded. Sun Jihai smiled, put his arm around Su Long, and said, I didn't expect your boy to find such a beautiful foreign sister. How about coming to my house for dinner tonight? Su Long smiled and said, it is better to be respectful than to obey your fate, brother Hai. When he arrived at the stadium, Su Long first practiced the ball by himself and cultivated the sense of the ball. When Kigan came, the whole team began today's team training. Kigan first praised the team's performance in the last game, and then said, the next game, we play Liverpool away. This game is a tough game. We have to take 3 points at Liverpool's home is not easy, even impossible. But no matter what, we have to try our best to fight and fight. Spiritually, we need to have the drive to overcome them. We weren't completely without a chance. You guys looked at the last game. Everyone outside thought we were going to draw or even lose, but we won in the end. In the same way, people think we're going to lose to Liverpool, but the game thing, who knows? What we have to do is this week, train the targeted tactics well, and strive to play their own things in the game. Now let's take a look at our tactics this week. The time passed quickly. Su Long took Chloe to Sun Jihai's house for dinner, and a few days after sending a doll to Sun Jihai's daughter, it soon ushered in the second round of the game day. 2 hours before the start of the game, all of Manchester City's players arrived at Liverpool's home stadium, Anfield, by bus. Outside the stadium were die-hard fans in Liverpool shirts, as well as reporters from various media outlets on the side of the road who were interviewers. Fans shouted into microphones, into cameras, Liverpool must win. Not far away, outside the entrance to Anfield, Sky Sports invited commentator John Barnes of Liverpool Star made a pre-match analysis. In the last game, Liverpool drew away to Tottenham Hotspur. This game was Liverpool's home debut, they desperately need a victory. And the legendary striker Anelka was abandoned by Manchester City. And this game will definitely do its best to take revenge on the old club and prove himself to the new owner. From the perspective of the players' squad, Manchester City are also inferior to Liverpool, and it's home for Liverpool. To sum up, I personally feel that Manchester City has no power to stop it. Just look at this game, Liverpool will score Manchester City. Episode 87, Gerrard's provocation, Liverpool's home gunpowder smell. Su Long followed his teammates out of the bus and looked curiously at the fans outside Anfield. There were so many that it felt like New Year's Eve in the Dragon Kingdom. Fans wearing Liverpool shirts of various numbers continue to walk into Anfield, which shows how strong the British football atmosphere is. Is this Liverpool's home? The home of the big team is not the same, the pressure given by the fans is full, and it is not comparable to the away game in the Bundesliga. Relatively speaking, the home of the Bundesliga team is not so terrible. When Su Long and the others stepped off the bus, they also heard the boos of the fans. Under the protection of security personnel, Su Long and the others walked into Anfield Stadium. Captain Dunn patted Su Long's shoulder and said, "How does it feel?" "Oh, it's a bit lively. I feel that the British fans are more enthusiastic." Patton next to him burst out laughing. "It's not the enthusiasm of the British fans, it's that Liverpool and Manchester have a vendetta." "Huh?" Su Long was a little confused. It turned out to be an enemy. "Originally, I thought it was the home atmosphere of British fans." Su Long was curious. "It's not the same city derby, what is the vendetta?" "Then listen to the friends around you talk about the feud between Liverpool and Manchester. In the disgraceful slave trade, Port Albert in Liverpool became the second largest port in Europe, and Liverpool gradually developed into the second largest city after London in the 18th century. But with the development of the Industrial Revolution, Manchester's industry gradually developed, and Liverpool did not keep up with the trend of this era. Liverpool, which lacks a large chunk of its economy, has also scoffed at Manchester's 13 predominantly worker-oriented cities. Since then, it has experienced nearly 100 years of contradiction fermentation, and football matches have naturally become one of the release points for venting contradictions. Manchester City, which is in Manchester, is naturally regarded as an enemy by Liverpool fans. Well, Su Long thought to himself, isn't this just mutual contempt between regions? Dunn smiled and said, "When I first came here, I was nervous, but now I look at you, I'm not nervous at all. Su Long is trying to score another goal today." Su Long smiled, and it was too little to score another goal. When they got to the locker room, Su Long called his parents as usual, reminding them to turn on the TV. On the phone, the mother complained, "The cross-ocean telephone fee is expensive, you can say it on QQ." The dad next to him said, "Son, come on." After hanging up the phone with his father and mother, Su Long reported to Chloe that he was safe. Chloe went to school and now she's in the preparatory department, and next year she's going to design at the University of Manchester. With only half an hour to go before the start of the game, players from both teams began to assemble in the players' tunnel. As the players of the two teams entered the player passage, the on-site commentators were also talking about the current situation of the two teams. "This is Sky Sports. Welcome to Liverpool's home game against Manchester City." The starting lineup of both sides has not changed compared to the first round, with two Spaniards Xavi Alonso and Luis Garcia who underwent a medical examination from Liverpool on Friday watching from the stands, and Anelka, who moved from Manchester City to Liverpool, definitely wants to perform well in front of the old club and the new club, and we are looking forward to the play of this famous French striker. On the Manchester City side, Liverpool veteran McManaman was absent with an ankle injury, but Fowler and Sarong played very well in the last game. Forward Fowler, goalkeeper James, and manager Keegan are also old Liverpool people. Liverpool-born Barton is on the bench. What kind of performance will they have against their old club today? In addition, the most concerned is the young striker Su Long of Longwa, who scored twice in the last game, whether he can continue to score goals in this game. Su Long was looking at the greenery outside the players' passage, when suddenly a voice sounded in his ear. "Hey, little baby, you're Su Long. Don't cry your nose when you play. If you're sad, go home and suckle." Su Long was stunned for a moment, turned his head to look at the Liverpool player in front of him, seemed to be a little familiar, but he did not recognize who it was. He looked at the other person, confused. "This man is deliberately looking for trouble, right?" Dunn immediately walked over and said, "Gerald, what do you want to do? When do you like to bully young people?" When Su Long heard Dunn's words, he recognized it. Oh, it turned out to be Liverpool captain Gerald. Gerald smiled and said, "I'm just curious to say hello. Are you so worried? Protect him as a baby. Has he quit breastfeeding?" Sun Jihai patted Su Long's shoulder and said, "Su Long, don't pay attention to him. He wants to make you psychological." Su Long smiled and said, "It's okay. Waste will want to do such a thing before the game." The words fell into the ears of the Liverpool players, and there was an immediate commotion. "Boy, what do you mean? You say it again. You want to die, don't you?" Su Long smiled and said, "What's wrong? I just said hello. You still protect him as a baby. Did he quit breastfeeding?" Su Long sent this sentence back directly, and Dunn, Thatcher, Barton and others around him immediately laughed. Well said, Sue. Have you quit breastfeeding, Gerald? Go home and drink milk, Gerald. Originally, Thatcher and Barton did not have much feeling for Sue Long, and they regarded them as obedient players. I didn't expect Sue Long to be young, and he was such a weak identity of the Dragon Country, and he could still be so rigid on the court, and Thatcher and Barton's perception of Sue Long was suddenly very good. That's when Thatcher and Barton took Sue Long as their own. The Liverpool players suddenly surrounded each other, and Thatcher and Barton stood up and said, "What's wrong, want to do it?" Thatcher and Barton are notorious stadium villains. They stepped up and the Liverpool players didn't dare to mess around. Anelka had wanted to say 2 harsh words, but when he saw Thatcher and Barton stand up for Sue Long, he shut up. Damn, when I was at Manchester City, you two looked down on me, and now you are helping that Dragon Country man out. Anelka was very unbalanced. Thatcher smiled and said, Sue, yes, don't be afraid, if you dare to move you, I will move them. The 4 referees immediately rushed over and said, don't do anything anymore. Under the deterrence of the referee, the Liverpool players glared at Sue Long and whispered, you wait. Gerald's face was ugly. He had wanted to give Sue Long a dismount before the game, so that he was mentally unbalanced, but he did not expect that this Dragon Country teenager was so hard that he dared to openly intimidate himself. Gerald was not able to get Sue Long, but was made a little angry by Sue Long. The 4 referees saw that there was going to be a clash in the players' tunnel, and they were about to fight, so they rushed to take the 2 teams of players out. The referee shook his head. The match was full of gunpowder before it even started. Manchester City, the number 9 player, is a young man, and this game is going to teach a lesson and pay the price of youth. Sue Long looked at the Liverpool players looking at his own eyes and revealed the sinister look. Originally did not want to simulate the football career. Now that you're going to play Liverpool and Gerrard well, you have to simulate your football career and see how this game goes. Do you use the football career simulator? Use once to consume 1,000 achievement points. Yes. In 2004, you joined Premier League side Manchester City for a transfer fee of £10 million. In 2008, you were 22 years old, and at the end of the season, you scored 18 goals and moved to Real Madrid. In 2021, you are 35 years old, the season is over, and you retire from the OE team where your dream began. Choose your life experience. Life experiences are flashbacks. Because of the life experience gained many times before, many parts are repetitive. For example, the life experience of returning to Our in his 30s to complete the last stop of his career, such as the life experience of moving to Real Madrid at the age of 22, such as the trip to Manchester City between the ages of 18 and 22. Each life experience will supplement different memory fragments, allowing Sue Long to remember these 4 years at Manchester City, transfer to Real Madrid at the age of 22, and return to OE in his 30s. There are more and more fragments of memories, and more able to see the whole thing in its entirety. Sue Long finally knew why his career had changed dramatically after moving to Real Madrid at the age of 22. Because when I go by myself, it is the worst time for Real Madrid. The top management is replaced, and the manager is dismissed. The summer signings failed. The club hierarchy is in chaos. Players continue to be injured. This season, Real Madrid is not only empty of the 4 sides, but also killed by Juve, Liverpool, and Barca. How can there be good results after this time has passed? So Sue Long's career suffered a big downturn here. Not only because Sue Long was not strong enough, but because he was also killed. If you go to Real Madrid a year later, wait until the new top of Real Madrid takes office, and join Real Madrid when the second phase of the galaxy is formed, then the ending will be completely different. The first big hole in my previous career was that there was a problem here. It's early time for the transfer. Then came the Manchester City era. After making a good start in the first game, he got the weight of a coach. Life at Manchester City is also much better than the previous simulations, and although he is not the captain, he is also the core of the team's attack. After Keegan voluntarily resigned after 2 years, Coach Pearce took over, and Sue Long was still the core of the attack under the coaching of Pearce. After graduating in 2008 and replacing him with a new head coach, Sue Long saw that his status in the team would drop a lot, so he chose to transfer. Pearce this coach, Sue Long has the impression, this man is okay. Finally, there are the memory fragments of this season. Double defeat Tottenham, double loss Manchester United, double defeat Arsenal, double defeat Chelsea. Well, remember these teams. Finally came the memory fragment of this game. He lost the match 1-2 and scored his own goal, but was injured in the 67th minute. He was wildly targeted by Liverpool and was toppled for the first time in the 5th minute. Among them, Gerald fouled himself the most, and also avoided the referee's point of view, secretly putting down the black foot, resulting in his own injury. Finally, he smiled and said to himself, "Rookie, give you a good lesson today." Gerald, yes, I'm going to beat you up as Gerald today. In the 5th minute of the game, Sue Long successfully created an anti-offside position, received a direct pass from his teammate, and prepared to enter the box. Sue Long knew very well that the next thing that greeted him was Gerald's fierce sliding shovel, directly scooping over his own ball with the ball. Episode 88. The watching of 100 million people opens the door for 2 degrees. Nice anti-offside. Su Long got a good chance. He is going to enter the forbidden area. Gerald's tackle. Beautiful. Su Long seemed to have eyes on his back, and jumped up to avoid Gerald's sliding shovel. Gerald's eyes widened in surprise. He had no idea that Su Long would be so alert. At the moment when he got off his feet, he jumped up. Then, Gerald saw Su Long's sneakers jumping high, and his face suddenly changed dramatically. The next second, Gerald screamed. Gerald's sliding shovel just slid under Su Long's body, and Su Long stepped on Gerald's chest. Then stare hard and use the force to enter the forbidden area. Beep. Referee Pole immediately blew the whistle and ran over. The fans booed. However, at this moment, in full view of everyone, Gerald actually reached out and grabbed Su Long's ankle. Su Long was tripped at once. Gerald immediately let go, covered his chest, and held in pain. Pain to death. Gerald felt as if his ribs were broken. This kid was so fierce. Referee Pole was dumbfounded. Nima. Originally, the referee Pole wanted to punish Su Long for fouling. Su Long jumped up to avoid Gerald's slippery shovel. Just stepped on Gerald. In fact, it can be judged or not. How Gerald is also a home star. Su Long, as a newcomer player in the Dragon Kingdom, the referee gave Gerald a home whistle is no problem. However, Gerald reached out and tripped Su Long, and the situation was different. Now it's Premier League live. This scene just now is not only seen by the 30,000 Liverpool fans here. More than 20 million viewers around the world are watching the live broadcast, after a newspaper report in the United Kingdom has heard that there are more than 100 million Dragon Country fans watching Sun Jihai and other Dragon Country players in the Far East. Under such circumstances, referee Pole did not dare to use his reputation to help Gerard, because Gerald's foul was too obvious. You reach out and pull someone's foot, Gerald, what are you thinking? Referee Pole can only say, Gerald, your brain is stupid today. Players from Liverpool and Manchester City immediately rushed over and surrounded the referee on both sides of the players, pushing each other away. Thatcher, a famous villain in Manchuria, shouted, what are you doing? Captain Dunn pulled Su Long up, shielded Su Long behind him and said, is it all right? Su Long shook his head and said, it's all right, this is a bit of a ball, right? Anelka had wanted to speak, but after glancing at Thatcher and Dunn, he was still provoked. Liverpool side of the cowl immediately scolded, he is killing. Do you see Gerald? Gerald had already been relieved, and when he heard Cowell say this, he immediately showed a look of pain. But touching your chest is really painful. Can't it really be a broken rib, right? Mills on the Manchester City side, and Cowell, former Leeds United teammates, retorted, it was Gerald who shoveled a foul in the back, which is self-inflicted and cannot be lived. And he also tripped Su Long, which is a forbidden area. Who saw it? It was this kid who fell down on his own, and it was about us. Penalty. Mr. Referee, it was an obvious foul. Penalty. Point your times ball. Times in Manchester. Times Liverpool. Dayu times. Seeing that the two sides were about to quarrel, the referee and other players separated the two sides. Referee Pole walked up to Su Long and warned, Su, your action has passed. Su Long said, Mr. Referee, I am the one who was slipping the shovel, and the one who tripped up. Referee Pole took a deep look at Su Long, and the young man gave him a feeling that was not at all like those newcomers who rarely had the opportunity to play, but very calm. Gerald was still screaming in pain on the ground, saying, Mr. Referee, I may have broken my bones. Referee Pole glanced at Gerard and pulled out a yellow card. Gerald's eyes were big. Referee, I'm the one who got hurt. Referee Pole shook his head and pointed 2 fingers into his eyes, indicating that he could see clearly and that the penalty was right. Then point to the penalty spot. Penalty kick. The Manchester City players cheered. The fans in the stands on the sidelines booed one after another. Liverpool players are also complaining that the referee misjudged. Referee Pole shook his head. How could this be a misjudgment? I was thinking of giving a little Liverpool's home whistle. But now that this situation seems to be that he has not been able to please anyone with the Liverpool home whistle, it is better to continue to insist on blowing the whistle impartially, and the two people who do not help each other are set up. Dunn looked at Fowler, who was the team's oldest goalscorer. Although this penalty was caused by Su Long, it was a bit disrespectful to the veteran Fowler to directly let Su Long take the penalty. Fowler looked at Su Long and said, Su, you made this penalty, or you should take a penalty. Fowler does not belong to the kind of superstar who is extremely controlling, but has always been a very polite, humble and willing to be a green leafy kind of player. He felt that it was good for him to assist Su Long. Since head coach Kigan has the heart to let Su Long take the position, then he will help Su Long again. Su Long was also surprised, but since Fowler said so, Su Long of course agreed. When Su Long walked up to the penalty spot, the fans suddenly issued a huge boo. There are also various insults mixed in. The teammates standing behind Su Long were a little worried in their hearts. Under this huge pressure, Su Long could not score this penalty. In the Dragon Country in the Far East, in front of the TV sets of tens of millions of fans looked intently at the figure of Su Long in the TV set, and murmured in their mouths that Su Long had scored. Su Long scored. According to the data from the British side, the audience watching the game is once again more than 100 million people. I don't know how many of them are fans of our Dragon Kingdom. Su Long penalty. The Manchester City players have been decided to let Su Long to take the penalty, which shows the importance of Su Long's position in Manchester City. Similarly, Su Long also returned the trust of his teammates with a perfect performance. 2 goals at home in the last game, which created penalties in the 5th minute away from home, can only be said to be too good. Rooney, also 18 years old and said to be worth more than £30 million. Rooney, the first day in England, did not start the season so well. Su Long began to run. Shot. Entered. Goal in 1 go. Liverpool's goalkeeper, Poland's first international goalkeeper Dudek guessed the right direction, but Su Long's far corner was very accurate, and Dudek could not save. Let's congratulate Su Long and congratulate Manchester City. 1-0 lead. At the same moment, the whole Dragon Kingdom's ball squinted with joy. Manchester City's last game against Fulham was only in the middle and lower reaches, but this game was against Premier League giants Liverpool, 4th last season. Goal in 5 minutes. Dragon fans feel extremely proud at this moment. This is our Dragon Kingdom's divine blade, Su Long. Su Long shouted with his arms raised, and his teammates all rushed up and surrounded Su Long. Su, that's good. Cowby, him again. Gone him 10-8 balls. While Su Long and his teammates were celebrating, Gerald was carried out on a stretcher by the team doctor. As Gerald expected, his ribs broke. CCBV5's Luke coach commented, Gerald's injury this time, a good example to everyone, what is evil and bad retribution. If he hadn't been sliding Su Long, this wouldn't have happened. Huang Jianxiang said with a smile, Director Liu is right, this is called stealing chickens and not becoming corroded to make the rice game start again soon, and the two teams are playing very angrily. In the 13th minute, Josemi on the Liverpool side broke the ball fiercely against Su Long and passed the ball to Anelka. Anelka attacked with the ball, but did not pass to the well-placed Cowell in time, and Manchester City escaped the disaster. The captain of Su Long's side directly stepped forward for Su Long and shoved down Josemi with 1 foot. Although he ate a yellow God of War card, he still smiled and patted Su Long's shoulder and said, Su, don't be afraid, we are here. Thatcher came over and said, done, let me come next time. For the support of his teammates, Su Long only nodded his head and thanked him. Su Long felt that after being by himself, the Manchester City team changed in the direction of all the evil people. In the 20th minute, Liverpool drove a corner kick and Anelka's long-range shot was picked up by Manchester City goalkeeper David James. After that, Su Long was kicked several times by the opposite defender, Josemi. But Su Long is not a person who remembers revenge, and if he has a vendetta, he should immediately repay it. In the 29th minute, Su Long finally waited for his chance and kicked Josemi with a kick. Good ball. Su Long's broken ball. Bosworth on Manchester City's side received the ball and passed it to Wright Phillips. Wright Phillips received a pass from Boswell and was put to the ground by Corwell, who escaped the yellow card. Renner took a free kick from the right and Su Long's header deflected off the far post. Su Long shook his head, there was a chance, but he did not score. But it didn't matter, Su Long waited for Josemi to have another loophole, and then went to give him another kick. Josemi covered his feet and complained to the referee, as if to say that Su Long's movements were too big. The referee said with a gesture that your movements should not be too big, otherwise I will not be polite. Liverpool slowly began to regain the advantage on the pitch, but the score of 0-1 down made them a little anxious. In the 31st minute, Liverpool's Cowell shot high from left. In the 34th minute, Cowell's left-footed shot from outside the box was lifted off the line by Manchester City goalkeeper David James. In the 39th minute, Liverpool's Hypaya shot from inside the box went high into the service. In the 41st minute, Anelka drove a corner kick from the left and Baroche's header deflected off the right post. Liverpool's many attacks have ended in failure. In first-half stoppage time, City seized a defensive counterattack. It's a great opportunity and the last chance in the first half. See if Manchester City can take it. Fast Wright Phillips on the left and Renner teamed up to kick the ball into the box on the right. Carragher's header. Saved by Liverpool goalkeeper Dudek. Su Long. Entered. Oh my god, it's Su Long again. Episode 89. The resilience of the Giants, the last blow. Dragon Country fans, who were watching the game in front of the TV, jumped up at once. Many of the fans were students, watching TV with their fathers and cheering. Even many basketball watchers have begun to pay attention to Su Long. Let's see slow play. Carragher's header was saved by Liverpool goalkeeper Dudek, but Su Long suddenly appeared in front of the goal like a ghost and shot the ball in. At such a close distance, Dudek has no way at all, and can only watch the ball into the net. Manchester City 2-0, what a wonderful performance. Su Long's plum second degree. It's another second degree. At halftime, 2-0, Manchester City led by 2 goals. Who would have thought of such a result before the game? Dudek hammered the grass angrily scolding his teammates. What are you doing? Defensive. How can I keep it alone? Josemi, who was defending Su Long, covered his head with both hands, and he lost Su Long. Liverpool's players are dumbfounded. Before the start of the game, they had no idea that this would be the result. The fans in the stands covered their heads and looked at the Liverpool goal in disbelief. Coming in again? Liverpool's new boss Benitez also covered his head. The first away game is 0-0 draw. This home game, if he loses 0-2 to Manchester City, he does not know how to explain to the Liverpool hierarchy. At halftime, Benitez yelled at the players, "Don't keep your heads down. When you start walking on the pitch in the second half, you have to hold your heads high. You are also worthy of the tickets bought by the fans. Hear that?" Liverpool songs are still singing outside. The fans have not given up, and you can't give up. It's just Manchester City opposite. Not a demon, don't be afraid. As long as you can find the opportunity, then everything must be possible. Do your best to create opportunities, believe in yourself, you can do it. Benitez had to encourage the players at this time 187 and beat them to chicken blood. He doesn't want to lose the game in the first home game. Benitez then added, "For Manchester City's number 9 player, don't shovel him, he's very alert, you guys are defending a little harder, kick with your feet, drag with your hands. He's not fast, you can hold him, focus on it, you can." Benitez is also a generation of famous coaches. The effect of playing chicken blood is very strong. Under Benitez's chicken blood, Liverpool players in the second half of the appearance of the momentum is different. Soulong and others saw that the spirit of Liverpool's players was different, and they frowned suddenly. Just 2 minutes into the second half, Liverpool found a very threatening opportunity. Biscayne fired a corner kick from the left and Manchester City's Bosbolt cleared the box. Outside the penalty area, Anelka just received the ball. A long-range shot was deflected out of the 48th minute. Finnan's breakthrough on the right was blocked. Immediately into the box, Barash's right foot shot into the bottom left corner. Manchester City goalkeeper David James could not save. Liverpool equalized. Barash slipped to his knees, and the fans cheered. Keegan on the sidelines roared, "Seriously? The second half has just begun, and your concentration is there." By this time, the Manchester City players had sensed that something was wrong. Captain Dunn said to the defender who had just lost his position, "Keep an eye on it." Soulong also felt the pressure. Is this the strength of the Premier League giants? He conceded 2 goals in the first half and wanted to chase them back in the second half. But this is also too small to look at us Manchester City. In the 49th minute, a chance for Manchester City, Fowler's long-range shot was picked up by Poland's international Dudek. In the 58th minute, another defensive counterattack by Manchester City. Mills threw the ball into the sideline. Sabilski headed the ball across, and Soulong's close-range shot was slightly offside. Soulong shook his head and raised his hand to signal my ball. The ball from my teammates was already passing well, but it was a little bit close just now, and it felt like I had run out of luck in the first half. Now the two teams are once again in the midst of a tense tug-of-war. Manchester City, although they have a 1-goal lead, are unsafe under Liverpool's heavy attack. Liverpool want to score another goal, at least to force a draw, so that they can account for the fans. Manchester City also thought about defending the counter-attack, scoring another goal, and it would be stable. The tension of the situation made the fans at the scene sing the Liverpool song. Manchester City fans in front of the TV, Dragon Country fans, the same nervousness. Can City hold on to a 1-goal lead and win the game? Soulong could not score another goal and score a hat-trick. Fans are praying for the team they support to change in the remaining 30 minutes. In the 61st minute, Liverpool's chance, Anelka's powerful long-range shot from the right, was blocked by David James. Anelka was not able to score a goal and looked unhappy. Soon, Liverpool once again launched a barrage on the Manchester City goal. In the 66th minute, Cowell played with Anelka, and Finnan formed a threat in the box. All the fans stood up at once. Head coach Benitez also stood up suddenly. As long as this ball is recovered, Liverpool can at least grasp the initiative, and they can also grasp the initiative. In the first home game, he is not allowed to lose. The next second, the whole audience suddenly fell silent. Finnan's shot was ridiculously high. The Manchester City players burst into laughter. After that, Liverpool attacked many times, but without success. It's 75 minutes, it's still 2-1, or Manchester City are leading by a goal, which is a relief to Manchester City fans and Dragon Country fans. Just keep it for another 15 minutes. However, according to Murphy's Law, what you fear will appear. In the 78th minute, Barash's shot from inside the box was blocked by James, and Anelka followed up with a right-footed shot to score an empty goal, and Liverpool tied 2-2. Anelka ran all over the field excitedly. He's done taking revenge on his old club. With 12 minutes left, plus stoppage time, does Liverpool still have a chance? The singing of the fans on the scene became louder and louder, cheering for the players of Liverpool, and the Manchester City players are clearly affected, and their faces have changed. Soulong came out of the goal with the ball, patted David James and said, "You're doing a great job, let's just score another goal." For every Manchester City player passing by, Soulong patted him. "We're all awake, we haven't lost yet. We didn't lose, we can win." Soulong's sudden roar of anger shocked people. Captain Dunn quickly shouted, "Sue is right, we haven't lost yet, we can win. Gone him." Everyone saw Soulong's serious and resolute expression, and the spirit of persistence seemed to have been conveyed. Su Long put the ball back to the midpoint, clapped his palms and said loudly, "It's okay, let's go back to the starting point, we just score another goal." Anelka couldn't help but taunt, "Score? It's up to you?" Su Long looked at Anelka coldly and said, "I scored 2 goals, how many did you score? Shoot an empty door and feel like you're in heaven, don't you?" "Rubbish." Anelka was dumbfounded by Su Long's words, mainly Su Long's eyes calmed him. "No, Su Long, you also shot the empty goal?" By the time Anelka reacted, City had already served. Second Captain Heyman shouted angrily, "Anelka, why are you telling him so much? We at Liverpool can definitely score another goal." The morale that had already been raised began to fall a little because Anelka was ridiculed. Harmon really looked down on Anelka, a 26-year-old who was dumbfounded by an 18-year-old kid and really weak. Anelka shook his head and walked past Su Long and said, "No matter how loud you say or speak with facts, I will score a goal." Su Long didn't even look at Anelka and walked over. "Arnell's furious Coton, you actually didn't exist when I didn't exist." As the game drew to a close, Anelka began to get impatient again. In the 80th minute, Carragher passed the ball and Anelka's header was too hard and deflected off the near post. In the 89th minute, Anelka was once again successful in counter offside, and when preparing for a single knife, he was brought down by Dunn, the last defender in the Manchester City defence. Referee Pohl pulled out a yellow God of War card directly. This is already Dunn's second yellow God of War card of the game. 2 yellow God of War cards can be combined into a red God of War card, and when Dunn is directly sent off, he says, "There are 2 minutes left, hold on." The crowd nodded. CCVV 5. In the 89th minute, Manchester City captain Dunn was sent off, thankfully 89 minutes. 2 minutes of stoppage time. Defend these 3 minutes and Manchester City will draw with Liverpool. It is better to say that Manchester City forced Liverpool to draw Liverpool, but it is better to say that Liverpool forced Manchester City. Anyway, Manchester City can get a point away from home, which is already a good result. Liverpool saw that Manchester City was missing one more and decided to step up their offensive again in the last minute. Consecutive long-range shots failed to score. Suddenly, the audience fell silent. Su Long retreated, blocking Anelka's long-range shot. The ball hit him directly and bounced back. The ball was mischievous, bouncing up to Anelka's knee and bounced back to Su Long. Su Long made a hard trip and took the ball and passed Anelka. Su Long broke the ball. He passed Anelka. This is the last chance to attack. Hyapia instantly fills the position. Su Long passed the ball. It's Wright Phillips. It's 90 minutes, and Wright Phillips is running fast. Su Long gritted his teeth and ran as fast as he could to the Liverpool half. He felt his heart beating faster, his chest stirring like a blower, and the air he was breathing was about to burn. Manchester City's final strike back. Wright Phillips went deep, he went out, but there were no teammates. "Wait a minute, Su Long again." The fans stood up and watched intently as Su Long ran fast and caught Wright Phillips' pass in the middle. Behind Su Long, Hyapia chased closely and reached out to grab Su Long. In Manchester, Chloe held her necklace pendant in her hand and prayed in her heart. Longwa, Su Dad Su Mama clenched her fists and muttered to herself, "Enter, enter, enter the hundreds of millions of viewers in front of the TV, all watching with full concentration. Some pray in their hearts for goals, and some pray in their hearts not to score. This is football." Episode 90. Transfer. To change the Premier League, Su Long felt that his jersey was pulled, and he no longer had the strength to run, and his steps were heavy. The next second, he felt like he had been knocked from behind. Overlord feature activation. Su Long has been chased. No, Hyapia bumped into Su Long from behind, and knocked himself down. Oh my god, huge mistake. Hypia's huge mistake. Su Long accidentally got rid of Hyapia and entered the forbidden area. Now it's up to Poland, Menduek. Su Long shot. Entered. Oh my god, it's 90 minutes, Su Long's shot is still accurate. Very precise far angle. Oh my god, at the last moment, Su Long is a savior. It was wonderful. No one expected that this game was actually Su Long carrying Manchester City alone. This is Su Long's second Premier League game. 5 goals in 2 games. I feel like Su Long is going to make history. Yes, we are witnessing miracles with our own eyes. Cap Killer feature activated. Strength plus 10. Damage reduction plus 20%. Su Long's original foot felt about to cramp. Suddenly the strength increased by 10. He walked in the penalty area again. Goalkeeper Dudek and defender Hyapia sat on the ground. Su Long stood alone, like an emperor. The referee signaled that the goal was valid. The fans in the audience immediately booed and cursed. This abominable number 9 stole their Liverpool victory at the last minute. Su Long stood where he was, raising his arms to the side, as if to take the booing and cursing of the audience as a compliment. Fowler looked at Su Long's unruly appearance and inexplicably imagined the legendary King Cantona of Manchester United. Su Long's domineering appearance now, the living Manchester City national work. For an old player who has lived through the Manchester United dynasty in the 90s, Cantona means domineering, invincible, King's Landing. Fowler looked at Su Long and muttered, "Is this the King City is looking for?" It's not just Fowler who feels this way. After the match, Manchester United star Paul Parker, the main defender of the Manchester United dynasty in the 90s, wrote in the Manchester Zeitung the following day, "You know what? I looked at Su Long and remembered who? And you know what? I think of our King Cantona. Yes, Shuren is much younger than Cantona. Even when he entered the Premier League, Cantona was 26 years old, much older than Su Long, who is now 18 years old. But watching Su Long's performance on the spot, watching Su Long's unruly aura, facing the provocation of Liverpool captain Gerald is not vain, reflexively is a stampede, such a temper, like King Cantona, get rid of Hippia at the last second and shoot calmly, like King Cantona. It's a pity that the new King's Landing is at Manchester City, not Manchester United." Paul Parker's words caused a big reaction in Manchester. Manchester United fans were furious, saying Paul Parker had betrayed them and must have taken money from Manchester City. How else could it be possible to tout an 18-year-old Dragon Country player like this? Paul Parker then said he had always loved Manchester United and that would never change. But he also admired Su Long as a young man and hoped that United could consider inviting him to join. Manchester City fans immediately disagreed, and had previously been very disgusted with Su Long, saying that manager Keegan let go of Anelka was the wrong choice. Now immediately change his face to mean that Su Long is our Manchester City non-sale. And even some fans have said that Su Long is our Prince of Manchester City. When the prince grows up, he will become a king. Manchester City's fans were partying, and on the same day, there were enthusiastic fans who composed Su Long's exclusive battle song, Dragon. At United's Carrington training base, Keane and Giggs, the original Cantona disciples, saw Paul Parker's remarks in the Manchester newspaper and fell into the newspaper in anger. "What dare you call yourself king? How much money the Dragon Nation gave to Paul Parker really doesn't have a face. When was the game against Manchester City? I must give this faceless counterfeiter a little color." Alan Smith said. The next Manchester City derby was in the 7th round, September 25th. In the last game, Alan Smith scored a goal to save the team, and there are many words describing him as Cantona too. But a week passed, and the direction of the whole newspaper changed completely. All the newspaper reports did not see his name, all of them were the names of the Dragon Country people. This made Alan Smith very unconvinced. Keane shook his head and said, "Round 7, then let him live 2 more rounds. When the time comes, I will make him regret why he came to the Premier League." C. Luo on the side looked curiously at the photos in the newspaper. This Dragon Country man was the same age as himself. And the transfer fee is not much different, or is it the attacking core of Manchester City? In the first 2 games of the Premier League, he scored 5 goals. "It seems that my usual training is not enough. I'm going to practice for 2 hours today. The next time you play Manchester City, blow him up. He can score twice, hat-trick, and so can I, Ronaldo." In the United manager's office, Ferguson put down the newspaper. His face could not see anything, but his heaving chest still betrayed the fluctuations in his heart. How angry! Why not join Manchester United, but chose Manchester City, which is far less powerful than Manchester United? Ferguson was a little sorry at this point. He rewatched Manchester City's game against Liverpool at home yesterday, and after watching it, he knew he was wrong. Even if it is to be the core of the attack, it should be agreed to. With Cristiano Ronaldo as a winger with Su Long, and Kid and others, the new Manchester United dynasty will rise. It's a pity to miss it. There are also no ifs. Ferguson looked at Su Long in the newspaper and squinted his eyes. Since he missed Su Long, he should not miss another proud son of heaven. Ferguson immediately picked up the phone and called the team director. "Hey, talk to Everton, we need Wayne Rooney. They want £30 million, just give them £30 million. We can't miss the son of England. Before the September 1st deadline, we are going to take the son of England." After Liverpool's away games, Manchester City's next 4 rounds of opponents are not strong, respectively, away to Birmingham in the 10th of last season, home to Charlton 7th, home to 17th Everton, away to promoted Crystal Palace. After these 4 opponents, there will be a City derby, away to Manchester United. Due to the results of the first 2 games, Manchester City fans are full of confidence in the results of the next 4 games. As for the away game against Manchester United, the fans knew very well that it was good to be able to force a draw. But now, the psychological expectations of Manchester City fans are obviously raised by Su Long, and the idea is to kill the rest of Manchester United. At 2:45 a.m. Dragon time on August 25th, the 3rd round of the Premier League between Birmingham and Manchester City will begin first. With Dunn receiving a red card last round, he will be automatically suspended in this round, and Sun Ji-hye has thus entered Manchester City's starting lineup. In this match, Su Long did not score a goal, and the team drew 0-0 away to Birmingham. At 2200 hours on August 28th, Su Long, who did not gain anything in the last game, finally broke out in the home match with Charlton, a goal, an assist, to help the team win 4-0 at home. For rounds down, Manchester City have accumulated 10 points, and they are actually in 2nd place under Arsenal. At the same time, Su Long ranked first in the top scorers list with 6 goals, far ahead of Henry in 2nd place. Manchester City fans are going to die happy. Su Long is the son of their Manchester City Dragon. also began to taunt Manchester United next door. Because the next door Manchester United this season, 3 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss, only 4 points, the ranking slipped to 9th. Manchester United fans are very upset when they look at Manchester City fans. And on the surface they are full of jealousy that after waiting for a while, all the teams have studied Su Long thoroughly, and Su Long will not be able to score. In fact, I was very hungry for Su Long, and I was eager for Manchester United to get Su Long over immediately. There are also fans who have written to Manchester United clubs asking for Su Long. At a time when Manchester United fans were envious and hateful, on September 1st, the transfer deadline, Manchester United clubs announced that they had brought in Britain's son Wayne Rooney from Everton for a transfer fee of £27 million. Manchester United fans are instantly superb. Manchester United mouthpiece journalist Steve published his Rooney 10 victories in the Manchester Zeitung the next day. Present to Manchester United fans 10 reasons why Rooney is better than other young strikers, arguing Rooney's excellence from physical, mental, technical and other aspects, and arguing that the £27 million fee is worth the money. Finally, it means that Manchester United fans don't have to envy anything. The best talented strikers have come to Manchester United. As for the young strikers, please check yourself into the seat. Su Long couldn't help but laugh when he saw Rooney's 10 victories in the Manchester newspaper. It can only be said that British journalists really play. Then in the BBC's Premier League review, when 3 guests rated the transfer of teams this summer, they gave Manchester City an A-class rating, affirming Su Long's superior performance at the beginning of the season. Then he turned to give Manchester United an A+ rating, indicating that the arrival of British son Rooney at Manchester United will change the entire Premier League. Manchester United fans are superb again in an instant. Newspapers, TV have said so. Is there still a fake? We Manchester United are invincible. Manchester United fans say that in the 7th round of the Manchester City Derby, Manchester City lost. See Ronaldo £1,200 plus Rooney £2,700 and a number of superstars. Are you still afraid of the £10 million of Su Long?